Look at the friendly faces here. All right, so we're gonna try to keep this brief. I'm pretty sure I'm probably the last one between some of y'all in travel and or abusing your liver anymore. We're gonna talk about some cool new features that came out recently in Amazon around securing containers. I want to talk a little bit about what the cloud was versus what the cloud is now. 5 to 7 years ago, I think the common theme was to reproduce the data center in the cloud, roll out a bunch of virtual firewalls, a bunch of load balancers, a bunch of WAFs. We've come night and day from where the industry was then versus where we're at now. And I would say one of the key things we want to focus on is use native services. There's no reason you should be duplicating your physical data center inside of Amazon in 2022 and beyond. You need to adopt as many native services as possible. That's the only way you're going to get the scale. And more importantly, from a cyber perspective, that's what your responders need. Your responders do not need to go from the cloud to Palo Alto to Checkpoint to vendor number 3 to vendor number 4. They need to live in the ecosystem. They need to have the ability to tie all the flow logs back to IAM roles, to IAM users, to AMI IDs, et cetera, et cetera. So where do you want to start? You want to start with a solid AWS environment. Some of these amazing individuals over here have built this at Deepwatch. We really want to encourage people to adopt Control Tower, especially when you're getting into the hundreds of accounts, thousands of VPCs, et cetera, et cetera. You need guardrails, you need a blueprint, you need the ability to rapidly spin up infrastructure that has both preventative and detective controls in it. Some of the key things that we're going to absolutely say you have to have before you get involved with anything in securing containers is AWS CloudTrail and Amazon GuardDuty. Like, these are very, very important. If you don't have these, your responders are not going to have the data that they need to be able to find the initial vector and or patient zero. All of the additional recommended ones, they're just icing on the cake. Like, it allows your responders that are responding inside of AWS to have the ability to do what they need to do without pivoting to other platforms or other systems. And the mic does not like me. So, native services. You notice we don't have anyone on here that is a appliance vendor that has decided to build a virtual appliance to deploy inside of your cloud environment. This is all you need. There are other things that are out there. There's cloud security posture management tools and others that sit on top that do help you scale when you're going across multi-cloud environments. But to really get up and running and stay mature, you can solely rely on Amazon native services. Amazon EKS for GuardDuty, released in Q1. Pretty awesome little thing that they rolled out. Wasn't hyperly, I guess, marketed on the internet and LinkedIn. But they released it in Q1, came on by default in Q1. In Q2, they ended up flipping the bit. It's now disabled by default. You have to go in and manually cut it on because there are some settings that you have to have tied to it. You want to auto-enable this once you do get it cut on for all of your accounts, assuming you're using Control Tower, to make sure that this is being replicated to all of your new accounts as part of your blueprint, and what you're doing is your boilerplate to get in throughout your environment. What you're going to get with this new offering is there's about 27 initial new findings that are solely tied to Kubernetes, whether it's routing inside of Kubernetes, IAM roles being tied to upstream, downstream data flows, more importantly, anomaly detection inside of your clusters themselves, and unseen behavior as well, using all the same ML models that they have in GuardDuty and everything else. This is not the be-all, end-all for containers, but for where we're at in 2022, what most organizations are looking for, this is definitely going to give you a step up. Now, once you cut it on, you can't just cut it on. You have to actually configure your environment properly and follow best practices for deploying containers at scale. Time and time again, we continue to see people use overly permissive roles. They go with the curator role, they go with the admin role, they don't want to go back and forth with the dev team, the infra team, the cloud team. There are run-as roles that are very easily definable inside of your environment. Use these roles. These roles are what your endpoint responders and your cloud responders are going to need to go find the initial vector and define patient zero. If you're using a overly permissive admin role or a curator account role, they're going to spend a very long period of time trying to find out exactly what happened and how it happened. Another key reason you want to use the run as roles is because of the upstream and the downstream policies. These roles are there to define, to do a very specific function, and that one function only. You should not have an individual role that allows all of this to happen using the same role. Like, doing this creates guardrails and creates stop gates going from upstream and downstream, in and out of your clusters, in and out of your workloads that are running inside of the containers themselves. You have to use proper IAM roles. It's burdensome, it's not easy. IAM Analyzer is an absolute pain in the ass. I think everybody knows it. But if you really want to take cybersecurity seriously and you want to do containers in a very mature manner, you have to go through this process and you have to go through this methodology. Here comes an alert. So something we commonly see people struggle with once they get a lot of this stuff cut on is they have people that are used to doing IR in an Active Directory, Windows native environment, trying to duplicate that inside of Amazon. This is not golden ticket, silver ticket, Kerber roasting, or any of your other traditional stuff. Like your IR team, your defenders, your responders, they need to be living in an Amazon account. They need to have a lab. They need to have the ability to spin up every new service, generate every type of log, and treat themselves what they need to do, or teach themselves what they need to do in these environments to be able to do that in a very similar manner. We very rarely see someone adopt a Amazon approach or a cloud approach in general to doing response and being super successful when they are solely only have experience working in an Active Directory environment. If your team is doing this and they don't have an account, they don't have a lab, you're doing them a disservice. Give them a lab, let them run what they need to run. Obviously add billing limits so they're not throwing out terabytes of data and spinning up VPCs on the internet, but you want them to do that. Next, what do you want to do? You want to partner with the provider. This thing. So you want to partner with the provider. GuardDuty is going to give you a ton of very volumetric data. I think we all know that. Anybody that has cut it on, anybody that has looked at it, or that has used another third-party SIEM or a tool that is out there knows that GuardDuty is just a point in reference. It's a single point in time with something that happens in an individual account or individual resource group. What you need to have the ability to do is do advanced correlation across all of your environments. Not just Amazon, not just Google, not just Azure, but on-prem and all of them. Where GuardDuty will provide you context is inside one cloud environment. What you need, though, is you need to work with a service provider or have an internal SOC that has the ability to do advanced correlation, not at a single point in time, but across 7, 14, and 30 days across all your environments, and has the ability to weight all of that and minimize and suppress the mediums, the lows, the informationals, and only bubble up information when there's enough context to do that. So what you see over here is a single alert. Inside of Deepwatch, if you're using the Deepwatch platform. This is one alert that's going across a 2-week time frame. In a very traditional environment, these would have all been static alerts that would have gone to different analysts across that 2-week time frame on different shifts with little to no context that are going to basically become alert reflection back to the customer that are going to be closed as false positive benign, or they're not going to get escalated at all. So what you want to have the ability to do is use these lows, use these informationals, use these mediums as context. They have very valuable bits of information in it, whether it's an IP address, a host name, a SAML assertion, a OAuth ID, any of that. That gives you more data to go find patient zero. Again, with the enrichment, everyone should be doing threat intel at scale right now, whether it's Falcon Feed, Anomaly, Insights, whatever the situation may be. You pay for all your ISACs. Like all of that data needs to be banged up against anything that's coming from GuardDuty to do some additional enrichment and contextualization as well. MITRE mapping. So something that is really cool inside of Amazon today is with all the taggings, you do have the ability to get down to the tactic and the sub-technique level inside of AWS if you're using a provider or you've built a platform that has the ability to do that. So having the ability to map the entire alert lifecycle and the chain of where it started versus where it ended and where all the gaps were in relation to MITRE. Just some examples of kind of how we handle alert correlation at Deepwatch today. So above we've got some correlated alerts, which would be 6 static alerts, 9 static alerts that most vendors in the space today would have immediately reflected onto the customer. Those are all suppressed. They are suppressed until they have a threshold, and we have met a threat probability value that is 100 or above, whatever is customized based off of the customer, and then and only then do we actually fire the alert. This is what allows us to do very, very high volume, or very, very low volume, very, very high fidelity alerting. And then obviously the MITRE mapping with dark mode, because people don't shut up about dark mode, but you need to have the ability to see what's in your environment, what do you need, what don't you have, what do you have, what data models in place, what data models are not there, what indexes are there, what indexes should be there, et cetera, et cetera. Baseline for AWS. Again, GuardDuty is very, very volumetric. You need to do more than just GuardDuty. You need to take GuardDuty alerts and correlate them against other GuardDuty alerts, against other CloudTrail activities. Like you should 100% be doing Lambda function hashing. If anything changes on that function, that should be an alert. That alert should also correlate to an IAM role alert. That should also correlate to S3 bucket access alert. You can't just do one-for-one alerting inside of the environment because you're going to get alert reflection and then you're going to get alert overload. You need to do advanced correlation alerts across 7, 14, and 30 days in your environment to really get mature inside of this space. Testing and validation. So AWS Cloud Saga, anyone who's ever ran Chaos Monkey from an infrastructure perspective, like this is Amazon's new version of that for cyber testing. It's recently released by the incident response team from AWS. You let it go. Like it's going to give you everything you need to generate common known attacks inside of an AWS environment. This team does DFIR 24/7, 365 for every major customer inside of Amazon. This tool replicates the top 10 and 20 attacks that they see on a consistent basis. Run it in your environment, test your internal SOC, test your third-party provider, have it on auto run, and just let it do its thing. They're going to continue to expand on it. They're going to continue to add new tests on it. It's a great way to test what can you really see inside of your environment. Do you have the proper services enabled? Do you have the proper settings configured? This is completely different than your cloud posture management. This is going to generate malicious data. It's going to do things that are very nefarious, and you want to make sure you're doing this on a consistent basis. Assisted log enabler. So something we commonly see is a customer's in a bad day. We like to not say the word breach. We say bad day. They're in a bad day. They don't have CloudTrail. They don't have Security Hub. They don't have GuardDuty cut on. At that point in time, you've got involved either the infrastructure team, the cloud team, especially if they're in multi-accounts. You got to do a whole bunch of config settings to get a lot of this rolled out. Assisted log enabler is great for a bad day, getting a service cut on and getting logs generated in an automated fashion at scale across thousands of accounts in a very, very fast manner. Definitely something your DFIR team and your responders should have on hand. It's going to help them in a bad day, and especially someone who's out there that doesn't have what they need to have. And I do believe that was it. 10 minutes. Told you. Awesome. Thank you.